Timo, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be able to have a chat with you today.
Thanks, Bilshan.
You're the director of Mauritius Sotheby's International Realty.
That's it. Sorry, I know it's a mouthful, but yeah.
And so before we start, perhaps for those who don't know you, you can give a little intro on who you are, your journey, and what Sotheby's do in Mauritius.
Yeah, thanks. And thank you for having me. It's really, I know we've been trying to put this together for a while, and as much as I try and be a good communicator, I'm sometimes not. So apologies for that.
No worries at all.
But yeah, I'm in the real estate industry, of course. Mauritius Sotheby's International Realty sort of says that in the name, I guess. I'm a career sort of professional in the real estate industry now for almost 30 years. Originally from South Africa, as you can hear from the accent, and came over to Mauritius in 2005 as the property industry was taking off here, specifically the international market, and came over to set up one of the first residential golf estates over here from a sales and marketing perspective. And the initial intention was to be here for 3 to 5 years maximum.
Right.
And approximately 20 years later, we're still here.
Since you've been here for 20 years instead of 3, I hope you're enjoying your time on the island.
Yeah. It's been amazing. We're exceptionally happy here. And
Great.
But basically, I always say as an individual, South Africa is my home. But as a family, Mauritius is our home. That's where we've raised our children, and they wouldn't change it for anything.
Great. Timo, I asked you to come on the podcast. Of course, I think we had a chat about what the podcast is.
Yeah.
It's very much about how we communicate in a business environment, and we share stories. My stories, of course, are from my courtroom experience.
Yeah.
Yours are from your business and sales experience. And in every episode, we have a specific theme.
Yeah.
And in this episode, the theme is how to be charismatic, how to bring your charisma in a sales speech, in a meeting, in my case, in an argument in court, because a lot depends on that. And it reminds me of a book by Daniel Pink, To Sell is Human.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, I know, but I haven't read it. But yes, I know the reference. Yeah.
And the book is very much about everybody is selling, everybody is in sales, whether it's in your job title or not.
Sure.
You are a salesperson, and you might be selling, lifestyle decisions. I sell arguments to a judge or a magistrate, and I personally learned a lot from not just this material, but a lot of materials on communication, but including how your charisma is so important, because before people actually hear the substance of what you're saying, they already decide whether you're open to what you're saying or not.
Yeah.
And you strike me as someone who's always jolly, friendly. You bring the energy in the room.
Can you tell my wife and kids that, please?
I'll make sure that I do.
Thank you.
And just before I share my courtroom story, I just wondered, is this charisma, is this natural to you to be that jolly and friendly and to connect naturally with people? Or is this something that you've developed over time, perhaps in the context of your job?
I think as a character trait, I think it's something that's been with me always. And charisma is such a broad word. You were obviously scraping the barrel when you got me for charisma, but I've always loved people, and people have always connected with me in some sense, and I guess have been drawn to me to a degree because of who I am. So, but I think in a business sense, it's definitely something you pay attention to. So I think it's something that comes naturally to many people, and I'm blessed in that sense that it does come to me naturally. But it's also something that at certain times I would pay attention to. So I don't know if so it's I think definitely yes.
I think we'll unpack a little bit of what you've said as we discuss the theme today. So, as I told you, in all episodes, I bring a story from my courtroom experience. Yeah. For this episode, I'm going to tell a story that hasn't happened yet, because I currently have a case.
Okay.
I'm working on a case. It's going to be heard next week, actually. And it's a difficult one in the sense that the argument is super interesting intellectually, academically. In law, it's a very interesting argument. But I'm basically asking the court to depart from a principle that has been established about 20 years ago.
Okay.
By very senior judges, and that has been followed by other judges in the last 20 years. And it's not always easy to convince a judge to go against their colleagues or their former colleagues.
Sure.
And not that it doesn't mean that the argument is right or wrong, but even before the judge considers the argument, they're human. And at the back of their mind, they're thinking this principle has been established for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And in several judgments, the court has adopted the same approach. And now you're asking us to review this. Why should we even listen to you? Of course, they won't say that, in express words, but it's very normal for a human being to think of that when they're thinking, why should I listen to a novel argument and of course depart, because it's a very daring thing to do for anyone, whether you're a lawyer or a judge, to depart from established principles. And perhaps towards the end of our conversation, I'll tell you what I have in mind in terms of how I plan to deliver that argument, but you can just see that what's going on in my head is it's not so much about the substance of the argument, but I also have to come across as not being arrogant, to tell them that, all your colleagues were wrong, because that's not the place where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And to bring a certain humility, because that opens the door for people to listen to you. Nobody wants to deal with an arrogant person in front of them. But at the same time, to be firm. And I need to be prepared for some pushback from the other side and maybe from the bench, who knows.
Yeah.
So, when I was preparing for that case, I actually thought about you, because it's something I see a lot in Netflix shows about selling property. I don't know if you watch or if you've come across shows like Selling Manhattan and all those, and you see a salesperson pitching a property to someone and that property doesn't really fit in the demands of that client. They want a property in X region, and you're pitching completely different idea, because the salesperson actually thinks this is a good option for the client, and they've got in mind how they're going to present it to the client and try to change that client's perception of what might fit the lifestyle that they are looking for.
Sure.
I know that happens in Selling Manhattan. I don't know, can you confirm if that's something that you from time to time come across, and how do you deal with that, as in trying to make someone see another option for them, depart from what they've decided is good for them, and how do you use your charisma to approach that?
Absolutely. By the way, there's a show called Listing Mauritius as well.
Is it?
Yeah, which we've been featured on as an agency, and one of my agents. So I've actually been on one of those TV
we'll have to look it up.
So have a look at it. But absolutely, I think there's so much. Well, first of all, I think it's to listen firstly, and to understand the context of where that person is coming from. I'll give you an example. A lot of people who come to Mauritius, they'll contact you, and you'll ask a certain set of questions to try and narrow down the parameter of what you're going to offer them. And and often the stuff that they say is contradictory. So they'll say, we want to be in a really quiet part of Mauritius, but we really like Grand Bay.
Right.
So things like that, and you listen and finally you get to a point where you go, you know what, everything you've told me actually doesn't add up to what you think is right for you. And it comes, and again, that's exactly what you've just said. It's not being arrogant about it and saying, what, you don't know what you're talking about kind of thing. It's not that. It's like listening to them and saying, Grand Bay is a great place, but have you ever considered this? And the reasons why you should consider this. And obviously your charisma comes out in that. You've got to be believable. You've got to know your topic. You've got to know what you're talking about. It's based on experience. It's based on doing it many, many, many times before. And it's by listening to them and then applying your expertise and your knowledge, convincing them to the point where they listen to you, and then actually following through and showing them what you've been saying, because then suddenly they go, okay, well, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, and in the middle of all of that, obviously you're being a nice guy, and you you can't be arrogant about it. You can't be overly pushy about it, but the firmness comes in that sense where you in a strong and but respectful way show them that you actually know what you're talking about, and that you're going to show them something that actually fits their needs more, or what they think.
Yeah.
So I think that's
absolutely. I mean, I relate a lot to that. I think what I hear you saying is like there's a way of connecting with the client by making them understand that you've listened to them, you've heard them, and this is what you understand. And maybe you try to make them see something that they hadn't thought of before, because of course you've got, in most cases, a better knowledge of them. I say in most cases because if they are not in Mauritius, of course, then they're relying on your expertise here.
Absolutely. You could just go and show them 10 properties in Grand Bay.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, they're going to be frustrated with that, because the only box it ticks is Grand Bay.
Yeah.
All the other 9 boxes that they thought that was important to them when you first did your discovery and you try to understand, none of those tick their boxes. So you look at what suits their needs best, and then you take it from there, and
that's interesting, because there's a big I can say wave of material and podcasts at the moment, of books as well, on not being necessarily a yes person to be liked. And there's this book by Japanese authors that has been a bestseller in the last months called The Courage to be Disliked. And I find it a bit of a hard read, but I understand the concept behind it is if you rely on being liked in order to kind of affirm your own beliefs and find reassurance, then you're not, you basically you lose personality, and personality is what we mean by charisma as well.
Sure.
And it's a little bit, I find it a bit paradoxical in a way, because we think of charisma as how we are, or how we come across, and how we are liked by people. You think of charismatic people as people who can win over people, but at the same time, you can't care too much about whether people are going to agree with you or not. Like in your case, when you were talking about, there are times when you have to tell the client, maybe not you're wrong, but have you considered this? And you have a different, you're coming from a different angle. Whereas someone else who is focused on pleasing the client, and the client says, I want to be in Grand Bay and I want to have green space, blah blah blah, they might just go with that as a location and show the client what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
But that's not necessarily being charismatic. That's just seeking approval.
Yes. No, I agree completely. I think you have to be fully committed in terms of what you believe in, and have the confidence to act through on it. That's the bottom line. I mean, it's going to be short-term gain, long-term pain in a way, because if you get the guy in your car and you just because to please him, you're showing him, at the end, you're not going to buy with you. Because all you're going to have done by the end of the day could have been very friendly in that, but you would have just frustrated him more than anything else. So, and listen, at the end of the day, you can't please everyone all of the time. But we in an environment where we deal with, high net worth individuals. They know what they want, and they don't need people to appease them. They need people to listen to them, and that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to come to this towards the end because I told you that I'll come back to my courtroom story to be towards the end. But since we're talking about it, on the point of wanting to please, there's an author. He's actually a podcaster. He runs a podcast called Charisma on Demand. His name is Charlie Hooper, and he says approval seeking is the enemy of charisma, and I agree with that.
I agree.
And in my, as I plan next week's hearing, I'm thinking, I've got an argument that I've got precedents against me, and I've got an argument that the judge might not want to hear because it kind of forces the judge to go against established principles, and not everyone likes to do that. But at the end of the day, bringing my charisma is not about making the judge like me or even making the judge agree with me in this case. I think for me, I use charisma in terms of my tone and the choice of words to make myself present so that I'm heard by the judge. Because if the judge is not even open to hearing me, that's the end of it. Yeah. And for me, charisma is not what gets you the end result in terms of whether I win the case or not. It just opens the door for the judge to be receptive to what I'm saying and to consider what I'm saying. Of course, it's their prerogative what they do after that. It's their job. And in every case, you've got one party that wins and the other that doesn't. But the point I'm trying to make here is I totally agree with I said it's kind of paradoxical that sometimes you look at charismatic people as being like the popular guys, but it's not always.
No, charisma doesn't equal popularity.
Exactly.
There are many examples in world politics, there's one obvious example of a very charismatic leader who was possibly the worst human that ever lived. So, but he had charisma. You can't deny that. So, and I think it's the same with us. I deal with people who expect you to act in a certain way and present fact, and you can do it for me, as I said, the charisma, it comes naturally to a degree, and sometimes, and this is the fine line, is you can try and manage this as much as you want, but sometimes people will see it as arrogance. You can't, and sometimes people will disagree with you because, when that guy says, but I told you Grand Bay, and I go back, but you also said 9 other things, and none of those boxes are ticked, and he goes, you weren't listening to you. I go, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry, we can go to Grand Bay, and I'll show you stuff in Grand Bay, and then it will come out in the wash. But I get back to the thing. You can't make everyone happy all of the time. So you can do as best as you can and try and steer something in a direction which you think is best for the person who you're dealing with, and the result being in the best interest of everyone. Yeah. But there's no guarantee. Just because you have charisma, there's no guarantee it's going to go that way, right? Yeah.
And it's you said something a few minutes ago about sometimes it's about knowing when not to push too hard, and in the same way, as a lawyer, I'm in court. There's different arguments, and sometimes you have to pick your fight, and you have to concede on 1 or 2 arguments and focus on the bigger point. And sometimes you have to know how to read the room, how to gauge with your audience, and know when to push hard on a point and when to pull back at other times. I'm sure that happens as well in sales.
Oh yeah, it's actually more often than not. It's what you don't say as opposed to what you do say.
I wonder whether you have any stories about those things happening where you've had, I don't know, maybe you've either won or lost a deal, depending on whether you've pushed too hard or you've not pulled back from the point you're making.
I think I've got examples both ways, and I think that's where experience comes in,
Yes.
right? And you learn with experience. Yeah, in the early days, the numerous examples of where someone came and wanting to buy a property, and you oversell it completely, and I lost a number of deals. In those days, we were down at Villas Valriche, and and I kept on. They happened to be South African clients, and I kept on hammering, because at that point it was all about residency, externalization of funds, all of that, and and I kept on hammering on that aspect, just because in my limited experience at that stage, that's why South Africans bought, and I didn't take a step back and go, hold on, but these guys, that's not their motivation. Their motivation is lifestyle. Their motivation is something completely different, and I pushed this point, and to the point where the guy turned around and goes, listen, yeah, I've already, I basically irritated him,
right?
To the where he was. I could so easily, if I think back over it now, if I had him today, I would never lose him. Yeah. But I just focused in on the wrong on the wrong aspects, and then more recently on the flip side. I sold a villa at One and Only Saint Joanne, which was at that stage the highest value sale that ever happened in Mauritius.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, unfortunately the record's been broken now, but I'll get it back. But yeah, it was a Russian gentleman, and connected. It's not just him that you deal with there. You deal with a team of people. There's a team of advisors, and just being able to listen and understand their needs and why they were buying. He was a multiple visitor to Mauritius. They've been here 20 times. I didn't need to sell the island. I didn't need to sell the beach. I didn't need to sell any of that, like all the normal things that I certainly didn't need to sell fiscal advantages because of that net worth. It was of no consequence to him. All he was interested in was the brand and the service attached to it.
Right.
And ultimately, it was really his wife. I very quickly figured out that we'd walk into a place and he'd literally walk and go and sit down, and his wife would do the tour.
Yeah.
And so even though he had the money, she was the decision maker, and she knew what he was looking for. So so it was just it's that thing of not overselling. I let them actually just get to the point where they made the decision themselves, and then in the side speaking to the advisors, because they're doing the numbers, they are talking about how do we get the money here, blah blah blah. So you're managing the emotional side, but you're also managing the admin side there, and somehow they've got to meet up, and and it was a process that I learned a lot in, but that I was very proud of having been able to manage, because it was very complex at the time,
Can I piggyback on what you said about not letting go? Because, of course if you can expand on that, because it's interesting to hear you say that there's a tension between overselling and, being annoying, basically.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you need to be present, and you, as you've said in your words, not letting go. So how do you strike that balance? Because you don't want to be on the back of the person, but at the same time, you want to be very visible to them.
I think not letting go in the sense of being very, very quick and attentive to the questions they have. So being super proactive in that sense.
Responsive.
Responsive, absolutely. When they ask not a common question when it comes to legal, when it comes to tax, even though I might not have the answers because I'm not a lawyer or a CA or a tax advisor, I think we're very fortunate as we had those people, on speed dial almost, and you can get an answer very quickly. So not letting go in that sense, like being really reactive in that point, but also without overselling, just keeping in touch. when you're dealing with someone who doesn't speak English, you're only working through their advisors, making sure, because the advisors are doing 30 different things for him. Like the property purchase is one thing, but they're also doing opening factories, they're buying other stuff, blah, blah, blah. So being present with those guys all the time, like, you know, it's not like I need you to buy. It's just like, hey man, how was your weekend? Like, you know, I know you guys were in Geneva this weekend. How was it? And just building that relationship and that rapport all the time, so that when they arrive the next time, they bring you a bottle of vodka, and you know, and you have a good time together. And it's the relational side of not letting go, more than like, you need to buy something, you need to buy something, you need to buy something. It's a very soft sell built more on relationship than selling itself. Yeah.
If I can follow up on that, and I'll ask you a question that might not, I don't know if it's controversial. If it is, then we can edit it out. And that comes a lot from what I see in, you know, shows like Selling Manhattan, and I don't religiously follow that. I think
I've seen
1 or 2 episodes. But this thing about, you know, building the rapport and with the client, and I think for me there's a balance between the authenticity of those relationships and doing it as a business development initiative, because of course you want to bring your charisma in a relationship, and you know, you're asking them, how was your weekend? Is it because you know this is part of the process of building a relationship, or is it because you know you want the business? I know it's both, but
and I think that's it. I think it's part of, you know, you asked me a question about, you know, your charisma comes naturally, and then what do you do to nurture it? And so I guess it falls into that sphere. Is you do get to a point where I can't be best friends with everyone I meet. You know, it's impossible. But I can have more than just a superficial relationship with people. You know, you can get to know people to the point where I go, hey man, how's your family? All good? Wasn't your son, you know, wasn't he going to high school? Like it's not that I care deeply about the son and I wonder what grades he's getting, but enough that there's sincerity in that. Like I want to know that you're doing well. If you're doing well, that's awesome. But through that, it's amazing how many of those then actually develop into. And remember, I'll tell you, you know, that's a two-way street.
Yes.
You know, you can only build a relationship if it comes back to you. So, you know, I would never. I would only ask that question about how was your weekend. I wouldn't ask that on the first WhatsApp. You know, that's a little bit down the line. But once there's been some communication, you know, he would have said, maybe the WhatsApp prior to that, he goes, hey man, I'm going camping for the weekend. I'll come back to you on Monday. And my follow WhatsApp on the Monday is, hey man, how was your weekend? So it's more that. And then, but it's amazing how many of my clients have become
friends,
very, very good friends. I mean, I would say 5 of my 5 best mates on the island are people who I did business with in the beginning, and we've you know, we've been on family holidays, we've gone on golf tours together. We real mates now. You know, like we spend a huge amount of time together on any given month, week, day. You know, so and that all starts with, hey, how was your weekend? You know, there's an authenticity there that might not be very deep in the beginning, but it's done with sincerity, and it evolves into something more meaningful.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, and that's very interesting to hear you know, talk about how professional relationship does develop into genuine friendships.
Absolutely.
And so let me go back to the courtroom story and the case coming up next week. And
I've been waiting to hear about it. So.
Well, I haven't finished my prep, but the way I'm planning to present it is by looking at the previous judgments and present it as an opportunity that the judge in this case has to delve into arguments that maybe were not presented to their colleagues or former colleagues. And that way it gives the judge the assurance that they don't need. It's not confrontational to their colleagues in the sense that they're not necessarily criticizing the previous judgments, but acknowledging that there are points that were not determined.
Based on new information, effectively, to a degree.
It's based on new arguments.
Yeah.
I mean, the information doesn't. It's an argument in law, but perhaps the points were not presented to the previous judges, and this is the opportunity for all of us to hear the arguments and determine what the right position in law is and should be.
Cool.
So I'm hoping that goes well. I'll let you know how it goes. But these are the cases that make the job interesting as well, and whether it's for the lawyer or for the court, as long as it's presented well and received well as well.
Well, with your charisma, I'm sure you'll get the job done.
So Timo, just before we wrap up, one last question that I ask every guest, and that's just because I'm curious, is who inspires you as a good communicator, if anyone?
Listen, I think in our industry, there's many. I think there are many amazing communicators around the world. But there's a guy I follow from a real estate perspective. His name is Ryan Serhant. Okay. He's on the ball like you can't believe. He operates out of New York City, and the technology he uses and the way he presents property is like it's a completely off the charts compared to what the normal status quo is. And I think he is sort of paving a new way for how you sell property and how you do things. But the way he communicates it and the way he simplifies it is amazing. And then I'm a sports lover. I follow a lot of sports, and it's from a communication perspective. He doesn't, because he's English is not his first language. It might not come across, but he seems to understand what the people want to hear and the way he conveys it. And it's our South African rugby captain, Siya Kolisi.
Right.
He has an empathy in the way he speaks and the way he communicates with people that is amazing. If you ever watch the documentary The Rising Sun, which is all about South Africa winning the Rugby World Cups, and actually along with him, the coach Rassie Erasmus, the way they gel, the way they communicate with each other, the way they communicate with the players, and the way they take on board the whole country sentiment and response to that is amazing. So it probably could be someone much more profound, but that's it for me. Yeah.
That's perfect. I'll look that up as an alternative to Studying Manhattan on Netflix.
Absolutely.
All right. Timo, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
My pleasure. It's been so much fun, and good luck with your court case.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, man.